Hello, okie dokie. We are here to talk about the May 28th entry, which is the first two things before acting. The first two things before acting. So I'm excited to see what they are. You good?
Yeah.
Marcus Aurelius says, the first thing to do, don't get worked up. Okay? That's it. Don't get worked up. For everything happens according to the nature of all things, and in a short time you'll be nobody and nowhere, even as the great emperors Hadrian and Augustus are now. The next thing to do, consider carefully the task at hand for what it is, while remembering that your purpose is to be a good human being. Get straight to doing what nature requires of you, and speak as you see most just and fitting, with kindness, modesty, and sincerity.
I like the first thing that he said, but I don't necessarily. He said, "Don't do it," but to me, that's like, well, that's what I'm trying to do the entire life, to try not to be, like reactive or something, or like not be stressed out about things that are coming up.
So maybe if he's saying like these are the first two things to do before acting. So the first is don't get worked up.
Right.
And so
I'm saying I get worked up.
Yeah. And he probably does too. Like that's why he's writing this to himself in his meditations. So maybe it's like talking about when I find myself that I'm worked up, now I know that I cannot take the next step towards action at this point in time because I am experiencing getting worked up. Mm-hmm. And so therefore I need to take a pause and I need to allow this experience to move through me until I'm no longer worked up, and then I do the next thing. Mm-hmm. Where he's saying, consider carefully the task at hand for what it is. So like, what is this thing? What is this situation I'm in? What's being asked of me? While remembering that your purpose is to be a good human being. Mm-hmm. So your purpose is to be a good human being. And so this means that when I'm looking at the task of what I'm being asked to do, that I must look at it in the context of the entire story of which I am a part. So I'm looking at it not only in my self-interest, but in what's the interest of everybody else here, everybody else who's connected to this task. Get straight to doing what nature requires of you. And speak as you see most just, so like most fair to the people involved, and fitting, so it like fits this situation, with kindness, modesty, and sincerity.
Yeah, so like I can see like my cocktail of things is off balance from some of these things, Like I might be sincere, but I might not be. Maybe the kindness kind of escapes during certain times, right? Like if I'm being challenged or something, or if I'm hearing like I'm making a mistake or something, right? And now I'm being challenged, and now the kindness is hard to find there, because
Yeah, that's the tricky part, is the balance between get straight to doing what nature requires of you. Because you might be like feeling challenged in a meeting, let's say, and you're like, okay, well, this situation requires me to push back on this person. And now, I mean, it's going fast, like clock's ticking, everybody is back to back, like we got to move on with this conversation, but I have to say something. So I'm going to take a risk. I'm probably going to fail. And that's why yesterday was so important. Yesterday's daily Stoic entry was so important, because it's like, okay, we'll keep going through the failure, keep doing that. But while I'm doing what nature requires of me, I also need to speak in a way that's fair to everybody, in a way that fits the group, and in a way where I'm being kind, modest, and sincere.
And so like the fits the group, for example, like that's a whole other thing. Like you might be too low level or too high level, right? And now it's not fitting, right? And now because it's not fitting, they're challenging you on that's not fitting, and now you can't be kind anymore. Because you're feeling all, shit, I'm effing this up, so I wanna like, what am I? So it's like, it like, I get it. This is great because that maybe gives you some sort of like, maybe this kind of goes in certain order.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. It's like the 1, 2, then act. First, don't get worked up.
Yeah.
Then consider carefully the task at hand for what it is, while remembering that your purpose is to be a good human being.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That I'm okay with, and I guess like don't do something because you're like, this is gonna hurt someone and you do it anyway. Like, no, be a good human being. Like, judge the situation from a perspective of community, not just from yourself.
Right.
But and then I feel like I do that.
Yeah, the challenge it's like going against, it's like this challenge of itself, because it's saying, well, consider what the task at hand is, because sometimes the task at hand is, I need to push back on a colleague. I need to stand up for myself in this relationship. Mm-hmm. I need to do this hard thing. So like, do this hard thing while still being a good person about it. And like then that's also connected back to like the getting worked up about it.
That's yeah. So you get worked up, and then just stop. Just take a pause, walk away from it.
I mean, situations have different like urgencies to them, So like
sometimes
a meeting,
you have to be in it.
Yeah, like a meeting, you just have to like make a choice and see.
Are worked up.
Right, and so there might be in the meeting you find yourself worked up, but I need to move forward, and I do need to acknowledge this now. I can't buy myself time. Okay, well, like now I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to try my best here and probably fail and like put my foot in my mouth. But then maybe let's say like you and I are having an argument, and like it would be, we don't have like this urgency by which we need to have this argument solved or this problem solved between the two of us. Mm-hmm. So then it's like, okay, well here I can feel like this more relaxed thing of like, okay, I'm worked up about this, so therefore I should not be trying to push a conversation right now, because I'm not in the right frame of mind to be having any sort of discussion. So I need to now deal with my number one, which is don't get worked up.
I have maybe a little tool that sometimes helps to call it out that you're worked up. Mm-hmm. When you're worked up during that, like let's say you're in a meeting and they're just like, hey, like, oh, dude, this is not going my way, man. This is not my way. This is totally derailing. It's just like, oh my God, this is a disaster, right? Like this meeting turns into like some completely goes off agenda, goes somewhere else completely different, right? And it's like the getting worked, I just get worked up,
Well, what's the tool?
The tool is to call it out and say in front of all those people, like, hey guys, this whole conversation and how this is going, this has got me very worked up, and I'm like kind of trying to figure out how to like get us back on track, or something. Like some calling out your worked up energy, and I found that to be that by calling it out, that energy kind of calms down more, and it actually allows you to maybe come back and continue in some sort of way forward, versus it's this like, oh, I'm worked up and now I have to just hate everyone in the room or stop this conversation or something. Like, how to bring it down? How do you bring up the worked up thing down? Like, maybe calling it out is not appropriate, because now we're talking about the one of those other things that, like, is this appropriate for this group? Now, if you're in the meeting with a bunch of people, maybe it's not cool to be calling out that you're worked up necessarily, because now everyone might start feeling like, oh, this guy's worked up. Now you're putting emotions under these other people. So what is the way of other tools to do that, right? So
people who go to therapy would probably save their worked up. They collect like a worked up, backlog, and bring it to therapy and be like, in this situation I got worked up, in this situation I got worked up.
But they don't show that they got worked up, or
I don't know, or they do, and it gets them into trouble with their spouse or something like that, and now it's like this big blowout or whatever. Like when I'm worked up about something between you and me, like usually I will like journal about it, and I'll like journal out like, here's like where I'm frustrated, like here's what is going on with me, like here's the situation I think I'm involved in, and I can also see his point of view, and like he probably feels like this, and so I'm just trying to like in my journal like flesh out the story from like a bigger point of view than the point of view that I'm locked in, while still like honoring the fact that I have this point of view and that it's coming from someplace. And so I don't want to just be like closed off to it. I want to explore my point of view, but then I want to like expand it too, and involve the other people's points of view into it. And that is like helpful for me to get out of a place where I'm worked up, and I can be like just more like civil with you about, like not, even if I'm not ready to talk about the thing yet, at least then when you and I are talking about other stuff like dinner or whatever, like I'm in a better place to just talk about the random stuff.
I mean, it's a good list, I guess, to keep that in mind. Like, don't get worked up. Look at the task with like some sort of objective view. If you have opinions, just like maybe those are the things you say, hey, I have an opinion about this, but I don't have to share this opinion. Oh, I have maybe this feeling about this, maybe I don't have to share this feeling or something. Maybe you do share that feeling, it doesn't matter, but all I'm saying is like going through these steps so you can actually continue forward with that, right? Because otherwise, if you get worked up, this is going to stop me in my tracks now, and I can't go forward because I'm unable to assess the task at hand, and because I'm all worked up over here, and now I'm misjudging what the task is, and now I'm going to actions, and I'm doing things that are not actually the task. It's all wrong. You know what I mean? It gets like kind of all wrong if I'm worked up and I continue and I let myself continue to go down to actual actions.
Well, yeah.
So that would be my natural question is like, oh well, how do I do that? How do I not get worked up?
I think it's by processing the times in which you've been worked up in the past. Like that's the only, like because when I'm working through like an argument, let's say that you and I have had, and I go and I sit down and I journal, I'm trying to process the thing that just happened. I'm trying to deal with the worked upness that I'm going through currently, or that I've just gone through, so that I can like re-stabilize and come back to neutral. And so I don't really know if there's any other way around that sort of like processing and then bringing it back to neutral. But I think the tactics for getting there are potentially very individual. Some people might go to a therapist. You might use your focusing partner. I might journal. Meditation has been helpful too. Like a good night's sleep is sometimes helpful. Just going even on a hike is sometimes helpful. Like I'll just get clarity or a new perspective on something, and I'll just be like, oh yeah, like that's dumb. I don't need to get worked up over this. That isn't this big deal that I'm thinking that it is. Or like, yeah, I was probably wrong in that situation, and like, and I know now how I can make it right.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I hear that, but like, I my thing is like, I do go on workouts, or I do meditations, I do focusing sessions, I do all of these things, and yet I still get worked up.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that you shouldn't get worked up. I'm saying like, I don't know if there's a way for us to say, like, there will never be me getting worked up again. I think the only thing we have control over is like, well, how do I handle myself getting worked up when it happens? And now that I'm handling that in a smarter way, it's happening less frequently. It's less intense when it happens. And like, if you look at it over a long enough period of time and were to like chart this out, it's like, it's improving over time. Even if there's small changes, even if it's like going at a snail's pace, I'm still like learning and growing from the failure, let's say, of getting worked up. And so maybe then it's also like the learning of, if I know that like, okay, actually me getting worked up is a sign that I kind of failed in some way. And then I know that failure, the purpose of it is so that I learn, not so that I beat myself up about it, not so that I feel sorry for myself, but that the purpose is to have me learn something. Then I can look at me getting worked up and I can say, okay, there's something for me here to learn. Let me learn something from this as quickly as possible.
So worked up is like, maybe not don't get worked up, but maybe it's more about when you get worked up, use that as a signal that this is now a learning session for you.
Yes.
That's more helpful in those lines, because like, don't get worked up doesn't just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
But when you see yourself getting worked up, or when you catch yourself worked up, I can say to myself, not, oh, I'm worked up, I have to calm down. No. Mm-hmm. Or, oh, I'm worked up and I cannot continue this conversation. No. I'm worked up. Anything going forward from this point to the near future around this conversation that I'm worked out about is now a learning session for me. And so what do I do in learning? I can't talk in learning. I have to listen in learning. Otherwise, I can't learn. Because if I'm talking, I can't do shit. So I have to just then listen. So I'm worked up. Therefore, I can just shut the hell up and just listen. And now I don't have to maybe show my work upness to everyone, because I don't need to continue to talking. Mm-hmm. Because when I'm worked up and then I continue to talk, now everyone knows that I'm worked up because they can hear it in my voice. I can hear it in my voice. I know I'm worked up from how I hear my voice. So it's like, okay, like that's a good thing that makes sense there. Like, yeah. And yeah, that's cool. It's almost like recategorizing these words and these emotions and these reactions to trigger something else.
Yeah.
Like, okay, emotion, I'm really angry. Okay. Oh, okay. So the world is trying to teach me something here. Okay, I gotta listen. But the thing is, we go into like, no, I know better. Shut up. And now this is where you can't go anywhere. That's the stuckness. That's the stuckness of the whole thing. And it can only move forward when that stuckness gets unstuck. And the only way it can probably get unstuck is, one way that it can get unstuck is to say, I'm not here to contribute anymore because I'm worked up. So I'm here to then just learn. I mean, I like that. I don't know. This is the first, like, as I'm speaking, this is like a new thing that's showing up. But So I'll try to use that if I remember that. But I think I'll remember that, because when I'm gonna get worked up, I'm gonna be like, oh, okay, this is when I need to shut up. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Let's go through this new thing of reacting to it differently or something.
Yeah. Right, because it wasn't until we were walking on the beach yesterday and we were very calm that you sort of realized even what happened at that meeting the other day and it was like, oh, I misread what the task at hand was. I thought I was going to this meeting for this thing, and they all thought they were coming to the meeting for this thing. And so really the task at hand was for me to clarify why we're all here and get us all into the same page. Right, I thought my task at hand was to just move forward with my agenda, and I misread that. Then something happened. I got worked up. I stayed worked up. I wasn't able to then have energy left over to pay attention to the task at hand. And it wasn't until...
Well, no, I called myself out.
That
was the tool that I used.
Interesting.
I called myself out. I said, hey guys, you know what? Like this is not what I like, I'm like, look, maybe you're picking up that I'm emotional right now. Yes, I am emotional because I was thinking we're gonna do this and this and this and this in this meeting, but now you guys don't really want to do that. But that's how I scheduled this meeting, for that purpose. But maybe the way I named the stupid thing, I didn't want to like name it like specifically this and this with the exact purpose. It was like hey, let's touch base. Well, touch base can go any which way, right? So it's my fault to not to put the exact agenda in there, what I wanted to do, even though I had agenda ready to go. I just didn't share that with them because I was like, hey, let's just kind of touch base on how we're going to go forward. And I have these steps. I want to share with you guys how we're going to go forward. And there's pushback. Hey, wait, what is this about? Why are we doing this? What's going on? Like, what do you mean what's going on? This is why this whole project even exists. Jesus Christ. But it's misunderstood of what is being done there. And now there's pushback, and now I go like, oh, now I can't deal with it. Now
you get worked up?
It's not that I can't deal with it. I get worked up, and now I'm like worked up. My voice changes. Now I'm running this thing. There's 6 people in there. So it's like I met these people once in my life. My palms are sweaty. So it's this whole thing is going on, and it's not going my way. And now it's like, how do I? So I'm like, and it's very there was like an instinct thing. I was just like, hey, you know what? Like, I hear that in my voice that I'm not taking this in some sort of a not worked up way. So I was like, yeah, I'm kind of like, I didn't say I'm pissed off, but I said like, hey, like this is causing me some internal things, like I said, like emotion, like I'm very emotional about this, like this is, or like something like that. Yeah. And they took it well, but yeah, it was just something.
So you were able to kind of de-escalate it a little bit there, but then like the next day was like another level of cooling down from it, and then that was when we were able to be like, we had like much clearer understanding of what the task at hand actually was.
The understanding was literally 24 hours later, but there was another step in there that once we finished that call, I was talking to one of the guys, and that was good to kind of vent out of what happened there. So they helped me to kind of like not necessarily understand it, but just kind of like get it all out. And then there was another touch point that the people who were pushing back, I reached out to them and I said, hey, sorry that, we weren't totally on the same page, but this is what we're, explaining so I reached out again just to get this patched up, but not patched up, but keep this going. It's just nice. Everybody in there is nice. We just need to get on the same page, and I am the one who needs to do that. So maybe I was also worked up about because maybe I screwed up with the title of that whole thing.
Right.
Something.
And so like while you're worked up, like that whole day you're slowly making things better, but you're still in a worked up state to some degree throughout that
I'm
whole
still
time.
now in a little bit of that worked up. Like I still think that there has to be another touch point where I say something that completely now erases it. Like I still think that there is a little bit of residue, not necessarily in me, but I think that it might be in the other people, and I just want to make sure that there isn't. So and so one little worked up thing all of a sudden cascades into all these apologizing and figuring out, realizing what it is, and learning and all this stuff, feeling bad. Ah, boy.
I mean, but like that makes it sound like it's this exhausting thing, but it's like, no, this is just what life is. Like life is this process of screwing up and fixing it, screwing up and fixing it, screwing up and fixing it. And so it's like, okay, I want to take that in my own life, because I'm also like that too, where it's like, oh, like why isn't it just all going my way all the time, forever and always? And then it's just like, wait, hold on, like I need to be like more upbeat about the reality that like I'm just like constantly destined to fail. I'm never gonna graduate from messing this shit up. I will always mess something up until the day that I die. Along the way, I want to learn the heck out of a lot of stuff so that I can like move a bunch of things forward and create.
Or maybe like you
things
can make new mistakes.
That's what it is. I don't want to, it's not Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to repeat the same mistakes. I want to learn and make new mistakes. Learn and make new mistakes in some other different way, and then my life becomes big.
And without learning, you are stuck doing the same mistakes.
Right. Yeah, totally. If you try to avoid failure, you're not avoiding failure. You're actually just failing.
Learning.
You're actually failing in a predictable way, and you're like satisfied with the predictability. You're like, well, at least I'm secure knowing that what my failure tomorrow is going to be, rather than not knowing what your failure tomorrow is going to be.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, we've been doing this for a long time. You want to read Ryan?
Yeah, this was a good one.
Yeah, for sure. Marcus is always super juicy. Okay, Ryan says, imagine for a second what Marcus's life as an emperor must have been like. He would preside over the Senate. He would lead the troops in battle, direct the grand strategy of the army as its highest commander. He would also hear appeals from citizens, from lawyers, from foreign governments. In other words, like most people in power, he was called on to make decisions. All day, every day, decision after decision. His formula for decision making is a battle-tested method for doing and acting right, literally, which is why we ought to try to use it ourselves. First, don't get upset, because that will color your decision negatively and make it harder than it needs to be. Second, remember the purpose and principles you value most. Running potential actions through this filter will eliminate the bad choices and highlight the right ones. Don't get upset. Do the right thing. That's it.
I appreciate the don't get upset again from Ryan in several occasions. I'm just missing the juice of how.
How about do get upset, learn from it?
That's what it is.
How about we take it that way?
Because Gendlin's way of saying that, right? Like what is it?
He says like when in doubt. When people think like when in doubt, don't say something. I say when in doubt, say something, and then you're probably gonna mess it up, and then fix it.
Yeah, go mess it up and then fix it, and that's how you learn how to do it. Otherwise, you'll never learn how to do it because you're gonna think you know by like reading a book or something, but you don't know. I don't know. I don't know, and I'll never know, which is fine.
All right, thank you so much for joining, and we will be right back tomorrow doing the same thing. See you then.